We got Sam McKewon here from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you?
We're hanging in there, Sam. We were having this conversation about Nebraska nice, and I told him, I said it was a lot easier to deal with when we were winning. I never liked it, but I tolerated. I don't like it now, but it's just kind of been amplified because we aren't winning. Aren't you really starting there with this team and their resurgence? Like, you simply have to be better at home.
Yeah. Heck yeah. The last time Nebraska won a senior day game was 2018. That's how long it's been.
That's crazy.
They lost 3 times to Iowa. They lost to Minnesota in 2020 in an empty stadium. And then they lost to Wisconsin in 2022. So it's been 6 years since they won on senior day. That's something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it 5 years since they've been 1-0? Is it 2019?
It is. Yeah.
So there's a lot of those there's a lot of those streaks that need to come to an end.
That's incredible.
It for sure is. They haven't done themselves any favors in the ways that in the games they agreed to take and the schedules that they agreed to. And the Ireland thing, that was a 2-year ordeal, and Illinois got a week 0 game that, quite honestly, I'm surprised Nebraska agreed to that. I wouldn't have agreed to it. So there's things that Nebraska did to not help itself over the last several years. But yeah, it's been 5 years since they were 1-0.
I think last year was the best home record we'd had in how many years? It's been a minute.
Well, they were undefeated in 2016.
Okay, so I would guess it would be 2016.
Yeah, I think so.
And they lost, and they won all 4 of their games in 2018 at home. So they beat Minnesota, Illinois, Bethune-Cookman, and Michigan State all at home. So that year, I think they were 4-2 or 4-3. So probably since 2018, that was their best record at home. That would be my hunch. Yep. I'm doing it off the top of my head.
That's where that first and foremost, that's where we got to start, because you can't even begin to have the falling in love with favorable, like even use the word favorable schedules until you start winning at home. I mean, that's just one example of why I hate schedule talk, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't understand the optimism, because I do. It just hasn't worked out that way.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see the two sides of that coin. Is that Nebraska really has not earned the right to talk about winning a schedule, because they're not Ohio State. Ohio State's probably looking at its schedule and going, geez, we got to go to Oregon, and we got to play this game, and we got to play that game. And that's because they're trying to make the playoffs. I mean, I'm not saying Ohio State got screwed. I am saying they got to play Penn State and Oregon on the road, 3 weeks apart, and Nebraska's a home game in the middle. So, there's things that are obviously challenging, but Nebraska doesn't earn the right to until they actually start winning games. And then you can say, okay, yeah, they benefited from the schedule. 2016, Nebraska benefited from having a pretty manageable schedule, but they took care of it. They beat Illinois and Purdue and Indiana and Minnesota, and they beat the teams that they were supposed to beat. And they won at Northwestern. So they were able to handle their business.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't handle your business, it's kind of strange to talk about a favorable schedule.
Right, Sam, but it is still, I mean, you can still look at it and be like, hey, this is more manageable. Like, both of those things can be true at the same time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's very, if Nebraska was saddled this year with USC's schedule, I don't think we would be talking about as much optimism. It would be, holy crap, they've got to play LSU in week 1. That would be the discussion. I mean, it would be like, well, you hope they stay within 10 points, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, it matters what schedule you have. Obviously in 21, the schedule was as hard as anybody can really remember it, and they didn't win. But if you gave that team in 21 this schedule, it probably won't go 3-9. They're probably 6-6 or 7-5. So, schedules are helpful. And I think Nebraska's got one that certainly can work for them.
Sam, let me, so 2 weeks ago, so let's just say pre-Teddy P injury, we were talking about Nebraska's offensive line depth, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, they could play X amount, 8, 9. the Prohaska injury is announced, and this level of concern over the offensive line has like skyrocketed. And we're talking about Sands, a good, obviously a good player, but Sands a body compared to that total number. Is that on us to manage in our head, like the magnitude of that, or is it what it is until we start playing in a way that we need to play that looks successful? It doesn't
probably, yeah, probably a little both, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nebraska fans are getting conditioned to the other shoe dropping.
Just kind of like doomy gloomy,
waiting for the other shoe to drop. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a terrible injury, and you feel for him. I do think Nebraska can manage. I think they're going to be okay if Corcoran stays healthy. I'm trying to imagine. There have been other injuries over the years that felt more devastating, and that's not to knock at all what Teddy's experiencing, because it's really terrible. But Nebraska can manage it. They can get through it, and they're going to have to try. I guess the upside of it is that Teddy's going to get another year if that's what he wants, and he really deserves a couple of years just to be healthy, and to be his full strength. And sometimes you have a run of knee injuries, and all of a sudden you're healthy for 3 years or for a long time. I think of Frank Gore, who was probably going to go to the NFL Hall of Fame. Nobody really thought he was going to have much of a career because of all the injuries he had.
Yeah.
As it turns out, Frank Gore was one of the most durable players in the NFL after he had all those injuries.
Yeah, 2 ACLs and a 20-year career, or 18 or whatever it was.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he had an incredible NFL career.
Yeah.
In college, he was not great, and not because he wasn't talented. It was because he was banged up all the time. And so Teddy has to kind of look for those stories to kind of use as inspiration, because sometimes, for whatever reason, they really get it right on the second or third knee surgery.
It just feels like the tenor has changed, and no game has happened yet. I feel like we're kind of I don't know. I feel like that's on us. Like, what happened? Well, the answer is we haven't lost a game yet, but I feel like the tenor has changed.
It has. It changed last week. I mean, I think that was more about this coaching staff is trying to condition these guys to, dial in.
This is still a really good defense. They still have promise at the quarterback spot. You still have depth at wide. Like, a lot of things are still in play.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think, like I said, like some of the comments last week from Rule, I think were designed to, to talk to his team, not necessarily too much of the fan base.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree.
He wants his team to dial in and to be really, really good, and not to, one of the ways that you avoid losing one-score games is you don't play one-score games. You go out and you play at your very best.
Oh, that'd be nice.
And you don't let UTEP hang around. You beat Colorado by 21. You don't allow the mistakes to let a team creep back in. When you get up on 14-0 on Wisconsin, you finish that off, and it doesn't turn into nail biting. Same way with Iowa 2 years. It was 2021. Nebraska dominated Iowa all day long. Then they get a punt block, and the whole game changed.
Yep.
And
they coughed up a 2-score lead.
Oh yeah, they completely dominated that game, and then
what's weird, Sam? Like, and maybe it is, and Coach Frost said it out loud, and he was vilified for it, but he was. I mean, I probably would have picked different wording, like we need to break, we need to catch a break or something like that, and everybody kind of took it and ran. It's like, no, you make your own breaks, you speak it into existence. But I mean, unfortunately I had the pleasure of catching myself sitting through UCLA Nebraska with Bo, and remember, I know how bad that pregame was. I remember the whole Jamie Williams Bo thing before that game, like. But Nebraska remember those warm-ups that it was, I was like, oh gosh, how'd we get up 21-3? This is a total debacle. Mm-hmm. But one mistake, you don't convert, and it snowballed.
Yeah, it spiraled.
And
Yeah.
UCLA goes on this crazy run, and we have the fake punt, and we don't get it by a foot. And it's like, this has been happening for so long. I get the premise. If just one time you were on the other side of that, you think that you could shake it. But the coach in me and the player is like, that's not on me. Don't put that on me. But I could see where if you wanted to convince, oh, hey, man, it's kind of a real thing, man. This bugaboo thing is, but it's just amazing how something, like we talked about a goddamn onside kick overseas for 2 years. You had plenty of opportunities outside of that onside kick to not have that be a thing. I feel like we speak the negativity into existence.
Yeah, I think that can happen. I think that happens sometimes.
I mean, what is that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't, I think some of it is just, storytelling that we do. But simultaneously, it's just, it's been a tough run. The last 7-8 years have been tough, and people don't always know how to handle it because it's so foreign to what they had experienced. You'd have to go back to people that grew up, that lived in the 40s and the 50s to really find people who identify with it. And as we all know, life was different. Like it was people just, people checked in on Nebraska football on Saturday and then they went back and did whatever for 6 days. Now it's all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the time. And so like everybody's caught up in it these days. And so, I think there's a kind of, that's why the season's so important, because if they can win,
I agree.
Then some of the pressure is turned off. And I think then everybody can kind of start to relax and say, okay, we're actually pretty good. We've now gone to a bowl game. Now we can do X, Y, and Z, and we can move forward. And, we believe in this. If it's a struggle again, then I think there's a kind of like, well, what do we do now? I mean, we've done this and we've done this and we've done this. Well, what do we do? And, you just keep going back to they've done everything they can do off the field, right? They've built the training table. They got the building. They got this great facility that everybody
you're starting to accrue depth. You feel like you have a really good staff. I'm with you.
They've done all those things. So like now it's about taking all the things that you've done that it's going to build a good long-term program. And let's be honest, Scott Frost didn't do all of those things or even a lot of those things. Rule's good at those things. He's good at that. Now just go on the field and win the games that you're supposed to win, and then you begin to build from there. But Rule's process is solid, and his off the field culture building is really good too. Now you just have to go out and actually play the winning football. And there's another day and another time to talk about whether, the kind of offense they want to play is really going to get them, to the college football playoff with any consistency if they can't recruit 5-star players. I am a little dubious as to whether Nebraska can play this style of offense and get there without getting 5-star.
Well, I don't think we know what this style of offense is yet. Like, what do you mean?
The style of offense that Satterfield had at South Carolina, the 49ers pro style, system.
I think, know, man. They beat a good I don't know about that. They beat a pretty good Clemson team. Tennessee, I don't. Oh
yeah, I know. Well, I know what they did. I mean, I know they won games. I've just and again with the 12-team expansion, somebody's going to have to make the dang thing, right?
So who do you so you think is Michigan? Could they replicate that again? Like, do you think we have to be more dynamic, or like what do you mean? Like, what's the alternative?
Yeah, I mean Michigan,
because that didn't like blow the doors off me, but that was a good offense. They were tough,
they were really,
man.
really good. They were. Their really concept,
yeah.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see if they're able to build the same culture under a different head coach. I know he coached under Harbaugh too, but
I could see that offense in Lincoln.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to the style of offense. In fact, I liked it quite a bit. It's just that, what Oregon's going to do this year, and people will see what Oregon's going to do, is conducive to maybe not winning a national title, but it'll get you in the top 10 a lot if they're able to do. And they have a lot of talent too. Don't get me wrong; they have 4 and 5 star players as well.
I wonder if Nebraska could be Penn State. I look at that offense and I'm like, they drop a lot of balls.
Yeah, it's not very good.
But Allard doesn't. He doesn't turn the ball over. They run it pretty well. They're going to be spectacular on defense, and you watch, man. They're going to make a run to the playoffs, and it's like, oh, okay.
I think they'll probably make the playoffs. Now, for what it's worth, their best teams, the quarterback ran all the time. So Trace McSorley ran constantly. And my hunch is,
well, shoot, that was Urban Meyer too. Like a lot of these guys,
I know.
You know what I mean? Like his bread and butter was like QB run game.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And so we'll see. Like I appreciate the way Ryan Day's done it, and I think it's more aesthetically pleasing to watch what Ryan Day's doing. But we have to remember that Ryan Day has signed like 9 5-star receivers.
Yeah, we asked.
That's why you are good. Because of the receivers are really good.
We asked Keels, their play-by-play. I said, I'm not calling this an identity crisis, but Judkins and Trayvon, those guys are really good. You could hand the ball off more, especially because Will Howard is dual threat, and he basically, in short, was like, yeah, we're pretty dynamic outside the numbers. We need to continue to be dynamic outside the numbers. And I was like, that must be nice, because if I have those two guys,
you kind of want to lean on them.
They're getting touches.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting because one of the reasons Lincoln Riley brought it up at Big Ten Media Days about Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, and he said it in a way where he already knew that there was going to be tension between them, is because Kelly wants to do it a certain way, and Day wants to keep turning out NFL quarterbacks who throw for 5,000 or 4,000 yards. And it's going to be an interesting tug of war to watch up there for sure. Again, like Georgia can run the offense it runs, and it's going to win a lot of games. Because I
do think Day's experience under Kelly, working for and coached by, may buoy that some, but
yeah,
we'll see. But I know one thing, that those backs, especially if I watch what Michigan has done to me the last couple of years, with snow flurries, man, I'm gonna let those guys get touches.
You think you'll be able to see who won the battle stylistically based on if it's Will Howard or Julian Sayin who wins the job? Will Howard feels like a Chip Kelly quarterback.
Yeah, I would if they're going to ride this huge season. If they're going to ride this huge season, it's really important on a true freshman. Then he must be really, really special. Like he must be, I don't even know, one of the best true freshmen ever, because they can roll the ball out and win 10 games with any quarterback. They're in this to win the whole thing, and so you have to be really confident that you have that player, and that, quite frankly, there just hasn't been a true freshman quarterback over the last however many years who's been that good. There just hasn't. They're really good as redshirt freshmen, Bryce Young included, but it's very hard to accomplish that when you're a true freshman. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. The day's going to come when Nebraska will want to have the conversation about what it looks like to get to the CFP. Maybe that'll happen this year. And when they get to that conversation, I'm going to be fascinated to watch what they do on offense and defense, and whether they feel like that's what they need to do to get to the top. Because there's a different conversation to have once they start winning. And that conversation is, okay, how do we get inside the 12? What do we do to get inside the 12? And, and what that also means is, what do we do to get inside the top 3 in the Big Ten? Because that's what you're going to have to do. And that'll be a fun conversation when it comes around.
I don't know. My gut says I'd rather look a lot more like Georgia and Michigan with run action and shot plays than I would Oregon or Ohio State.
Old Urban Meyer. Yeah.
You know what I mean? At first blush.
Yeah.
I think that's what I would pick. Two of those aren't nearly as dynamic, but man, it really lends itself to some good complementary football. And a lot of other teams don't want to play that way. That's the thing.
That's true. That's a good point. Very good point.
That's Sam McKewon.
That's a very, very good point.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, great stuff as always. We appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care.